He is the chosen one. You must see it.
I gave Qui-Gon my word.
Is he the chosen one?
He is.
And it is the Jedi who will stand in the way of peace.
It's not whether or not we fight.
It's how we choose to fight that matters.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
The Force will be with you, always.
And I will not be the last Jedi.
You are listening to The World Between Worlds, a Star Wars podcast where we have been marathoning all of Star Wars in lead up to The Rise of Skywalker. This week, some really important episodes in Rebels as we're pushing towards the season finale. We're talking about Sabine-centric stories, Mandalore-centric stories, and then pivot to an incredibly important episode with Kallus and Thrawn. We're talking about Trials of the Darksaber, Legacy of Mandalore, and From Imperial Eyes. My name is Yates.
My name is Jordan.
My name is Jessica.
And my name is Keats.
In Trials of the Darksaber, the Ghost Crew discover the origins of the Darksaber. Sabine has to train to wield the weapon, this traditional Jedi weapon, and her Jedi friends are there to coax her along. And it is a bumpy road to get there. This is Trials of the Darksaber.
This saber is an important symbol to that house and respected by the other clans. I imagine Sabine was excited to recover it.
You wouldn't know it. After we got back from Dathomir, she gave it to me for safekeeping and hasn't brought it up since.
She doesn't want the responsibility.
Obviously, the star of the episode is Sabine. We start on Sabine, we end on Sabine. This whole thing is about her journey. They use the cultural idea of like Mandalore and what it means to Sabine, because Sabine doesn't really talk about that stuff. And there's even a line where she says like, I don't want to talk about this stuff, but like there's all these connections that we've kind of inferred over 3 seasons because she hasn't done much.
We talked about it that one episode where it like ends with the cliffhanger of Sabine, and we talked about how it kind of just like drops the story off, leaves it to get picked up another time. So presumably she's been thinking about it for a while, assuming that this is like all chronological, that she's had like
3 episodes.
3 episodes, probably like a week to like consider it. So,
and that's where we start off with the episode. Is they're like, oh, Sabine must have been really excited to see this, and Kanan's like, no, she just kind of dropped it and hasn't talked to us about it at all. So we're kind of like, what's going on there?
Yeah,
I think it's one of those things where like the story sets it up so that you just assume that characters are thinking and doing stuff in the background, even when like we're not watching them, which I kind of appreciate.
There's a line in this, I think it's towards the end, where Kanan says like, you've traveled a lot in a very short amount of time. And so like Sabine, the writing of her character, she's been given more to do over the course of the show, but this is like our first really deep dive into sort of what is motivating her and like a really sort of strong central episode. So how did you feel about just where we started off with her and like going to sort of emotional places with her very quickly, with like in the first 1 or 2 minutes?
I especially like the emotional parts with her, where like she's doing the lightsaber fight with Kanan and like revealing why she's so angsty, but also like we're getting to see the part of why she's so angsty is because she's Mandalorian and that's just like what they're like. But in terms of plot, that felt like really fast. Like, oh, now she's going to lead all of Mandalore. That was like shocking to me that that's where they decided to go with it. But at this point, I mean, I'm fine. Like, I'll take it because it is interesting. And I like seeing like how weird Mandalore is in terms of like all of the clan infighting and stuff like that. Like, I appreciate all of that. So it works for me. But I mean, it could have been nice plot-wise to have like more build up to this.
Right.
it's like such a huge step, and it's like, oh, an entire planet. Like, she's gonna rule an entire planet. Which,
Yeah.
but like her saying like, "Oh, I'm not the leader. I'm gonna find the leader." I like the end of the second episode. It like made it more okay. I
Yeah,
was like,
they
okay.
sort of pull away from
Yeah,
that.
they pull away from it, which I was like, okay, they definitely needed to do that because
Yeah.
not that I can't see her like leading Mandalore or whatever.
They
but
moved on it very quickly.
It's just like, yeah, it's way too quick. I mean,
it's kind of like a thing they've done throughout Rebels is like they'll just sort of like pick up with a Clone Wars story, but just like immediately. Like it's like, oh, we're 3 seasons in, like let's connect it right back into Clone Wars and just continue the story immediately without too many threads. And I've said it a couple times before, I mean, like Sabine isn't, I think this episode does a great job of explaining why, but she doesn't talk about like her Mandalorian-ness as much as like other characters like reference their like Jedi philosophy, or Hera's got some good episodes where she like connects it back to her roots, and same with Zeb. Like
so sour with it though.
Exactly, that explains why it happens in here. So it was, you know, trying to avoid these really messy feelings that she has and trauma from what happened to her. But very quickly, she was like a rebel character. And now she's like very quickly been involved in this larger story. The training sequence.
When you said you were going to be training me, I thought there'd be more sword fighting involved.
Hey, it's always like this. He was the same with me.
Yeah, and look how well you've turned out.
Are you being serious? Is he being serious?
I can never tell.
We should get started.
I loved it. I love when stuff is like taking place in like one location. I think it really, like the claustrophobic aspect of it really gets the characters together and having good dynamics and stuff. And like Ezra and her or whatever, but like I loved all the stuff with her and Kanan.
Well, see, I really liked how Ezra and her or whatever, and it kind of even reminds me of Keats, what you and me were talking about with like how Ezra kind of thinks he's like really cool.
Yeah, and it was so annoying. I was like, shut up.
Yeah,
it's just like the second like Sabine is like has been elevated to like his level, there's this sort of like peer clash between the two of them.
I feel like she's always above his level. Though.
Yeah,
I mean, Kanan even says it.
Yeah.
Like
she's like way better.
She's just so like unbalanced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was just another detail that made it feel a little more real. But yeah, to your point, like having it in one location, also the passage of time, like there was a scene where he said like, oh, 3 days have passed or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I didn't feel like it was lazy. It was just like, oh, okay, like this is how it takes.
Well, I mean, I was like wondering,
take.
I was like, why are they setting up all these crates and all this shit if they're just gonna go train for a couple hours? But then they're like, oh, yeah, they're like camping out.
Yeah,
like, this is a whole week of training.
Realistically, it would take longer than 3 days.
Yeah,
but
I like the line where he was like, we don't have time to like spend a year doing this. Although they could have tried to do that over the course of the whole season or something. But
yeah,
I did like with Hera and Kanan. Like,
I like that too.
That was like a little plot device.
I love that. She like became like a mentor for Sabine as well. Like I wish we could have seen that more with like the Jedi in like prequel era. Like, I don't know, Obi-Wan consulting, like, Yoda. Hey, like, I'm struggling right now, Anakin, like, can you just give me some advice? Like, what's something you went through with your Padawan that we can kind of relate?
That's
and just,
why
like, bounce
Kanan
over.
is, like, very evolved.
Yeah, and he, like, was open to listening to what, like, she had to say.
Yeah,
and then
Kanan
at the end was like, okay, what do you want me to do? Like,
Yeah.
you're so right. And I was just like, it was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And I liked how he was also like, can you send like some like understanding and wisdom
and patience.
Yeah, and patience. And she laughed, and it's just like, yes, Kanan, like finally.
Like, admit you're not fucking perfect. It's fine.
But you can also see how much he has grown as a teacher in all of this. Like he's like, I'm like, wow, he's such a good teacher. Like
I think Hera says like, you didn't do this with Ezra. He's like, well, I'm trying to do an even better job than before.
Yeah.
Like I'm just like, I'm working on it. Like I'm really trying to make this work.
Yeah, and I really love how they didn't just treat it as Sabine's episode, because it was about the relationship between Kanan and Sabine, and also it's also a lot of really good world building of just seeing what it would be like to train somebody the Jedi ways who's not Force sensitive. Conceptually, that's like a really unfamiliar and strange thing in the context of Star Wars, as big as it is.
Also them breaking down like how you lightsaber fight gave me like a newfound appreciation for why lightsaber fighting is cool and hard, because otherwise it just looks like really easy. It's obviously not easy, but like it just looks like a bunch of like shoot, 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 shoot. Well, the audience can't see.
I just appreciate like, I know we're stepping away from like story and character stuff, but I appreciate like the world building so much in this with like Kanan like explaining like lightsabers, like how there's like an energy to it where they pull each other and then it's heavy, like they connect to each other when they like hit, and just like I don't know, I loved all that stuff.
It like completely recontextualizes all the previous lightsaber fights that we've seen.
Yeah, exactly. And I really liked all that. And who wrote this? Was it?
I don't know. That's a good question.
It's Dave Filoni, of course. You complete and total dunce.
Can you guys talk a little bit about just what you think about the Darksaber? I don't know if I like fully get what makes the Darksaber like special or why it's like
I think
so
just because
unique?
it's like black, and it's like it's
Yeah.
old.
I mean, it's
like ancient.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's with that like flashback with shadows. I think that was like trying to get as much information across as possible
That was kind
in
of
a limited
different.
amount of time.
It was cool.
Yeah.
It's a different form of like storytelling that we don't normally see.
What was that guy's name who was the first Mandalorian Jedi? Tar Saxon?
Tar Vizsla,
Tar
yeah.
Vizsla?
So presumably pre-Vizsla's like way
I wanna
ancestor, 1,000 years ago, and
I want a story with that guy.
That
sounds
cool.
interesting.
He was a Jedi.
Yeah, I guess the first Mandalorian Jedi ever.
And are there
way
like
back.
more of those?
I don't know.
Maybe.
Definitely this episode kind of, or both of these episodes really brought back again like tension between the Jedi and the Mandalorians that they haven't really talked about.
Pretty intense.
They talked about in Clone Wars, but really not as much in here, where they were just like an active tension where like, yeah, we don't get along and I don't really care to get along with you. And Sabine's kind of on the
As I think
outside.
like Kanan was kind of like pushing her by like saying all that shit he was saying.
Oh yeah, he was
And
like, he had a goal.
He
when
wanted
doing
her
that.
to like really tap into like her emotions and like deal with like her anger and hatred towards herself, which was really like not what the Jedi do at all. So I thought that was really interesting because like that was also another aspect of why she probably overpowered him, was that she was tapping into like her dark side, you know, like even though she's not force sensitive, you know, she still has those feelings.
I was thinking that. It was just like, wow, they're 100% fighting based off of emotion right now.
Yeah.
It's the complete
That's so
opposite of what they're
true.
supposed to do.
Well, I thought that earlier in the episode too, where Kanan got like super angry at her and was pointing, like he seemed really angry.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my god.
It was so intense because like he was pointing his lightsaber at her neck, and after he retracted it, she like kind of like grabbed her neck and was like, what the, like, and looked up at him and was like, what the fuck was that, man?
Yeah.
Like that's terrifying. You just could have killed me if you like moved like an inch to the left.
A lot of episodes focus on the characters sort of confronting, sometimes it's a person, but sometimes it's an object that just like means what their identity means, like what Hera with her Kalikori, like that's what that, it's like just like a physical representation of her past and like her identity. And I think the Darksaber is the same thing here, where just this sort of thing that Sabine would rather have nothing to do with from her past is sort of just a symbol saying, you know, destiny is pushing you back towards your people.
It must be really fun to do acid in Sabine's room. Everywhere
Oh,
you...
Speaking of that, that was such a cute moment when we like go to her in her room and she has this like little picture that she drew of the ghost crew and they're all like smiling and happy.
Yeah.
That made me like really connect with her as a character, because it's like underneath all of the like, I'm a badass Mandalorian, whatever. It's like she's really like just like a sweet girl who like wants to be loved and like has found that with the ghost crew. And I don't know, I thought that like really was like a nice comparison.
There's also a moment like right after that. It's a small moment where she just like touches Chopper's head as she walks towards the meeting room. I like the thing that they did where like she knows what they're gonna ask of her, and so she just immediately sort of just outright says no. It's clear in this episode that it's kind of been weighing on her already, and like she could have just said something, but because she's so like angsty, like she waits until everyone has to have like an intervention thing, and like she knew this whole time she could have gone up to Hera as like, Hera, at some point someone's gonna ask this of you, I need you to say no. Instead she's just like stewing in her room and waiting for like her parents to like call her into the room. It's like, I'm not doing it. It made her seem more like a kid, but also just more human. And that's what's really most important.
I'm gonna pull a Keats. Can we talk about Fen Rao for a second? I loved his connection with Sabine in this episode. I love how he pulled her aside and was like,
So
he was giving her something like that had meaning to him, like it was a pastime of Mandalorian culture, of just like back to when it was Jedi versus Mandalorians and what the instruments that they used to combat the Force sensitivity.
Yeah, I like that moment too. It was also just a moment of I guess just like some solidarity, and just like she's like has all these Jedi people teaching her, and then like someone from her culture comes along. He's like, hey, I know this has been really tough. Like we can still do this our way, and like you're doing a good job. Like just little moments like that. I thought that you know were really cool.
At first with him in the episode, I kept thinking, like, what is he doing? Like, I thought he was, like, playing it from his own angle and was doing, like, a little sneak attack.
Oh, sure. They could have gone that route.
But,
I mean, me, Jordan, we even complained how we didn't believe him when he said, like, I'm a rebel now. And then,
I mean, I believe him now.
now he's in sweet uncle mode.
Sweet uncle mode, yeah, literally. I brought you some candy, Sabine. Mandalorian sweets.
Everything I did was for family! For Mandalore! I built weapons. Terrible weapons! But the Empire used them on Mandalore. On friends. On family. People that I knew. They controlled us through fear. Mandalore! Fear of weapons I helped create. I helped enslave my people!
The main breaking point at the end, and I think what is the sort of source of her trust issues, is the fact that, like, she spoke up and then her family didn't believe her, or believed her but chose not to side with her anyway because of the political implications of that. I thought that was like really just like a sucker punch of like a really I don't know, that was the thing that got me while watching it, was just that, like, and I thought that was like a really human story and really thing that really pulls you into understanding her.
And I do think that it's been alluded to sometimes of like, you don't know what I'm going through. You don't know about my family. You don't know about my past. And like, I think they did it the right way in that like fight scene with her crying, like the catharsis of finally finding out like what her backstory actually is, like why it is complicated with her family. That part was really like good on a character building level.
I cried. I haven't said I cried in so long.
Yeah.
But yeah,
the episode literally started and Jordan just says, "I'm so emotionless, I don't give a fuck, press play."
Dude, I know, literally. And then I literally fucking
I cried really hard too. I haven't cried that hard since the droid arc.
Dude, it's just
I did too when I watched it the first time.
It's her theme. Like the story obviously got to me too, but like Sabine's theme is so good. It just like, it's so moving. It literally just brought me to tears whenever it would pop up.
Yeah, it's probably it's the one piece of music that I remember like pretty clearly, other than like the theme song. But like those are the only two that really stick with me. But the
she got real, man. She got real again at the end.
For me, it was what Kanan said about him being like a reliable family to Sabine, because it's just I totally believed him.
I found it like a little. This is not going to be a popular opinion, but
yeah, you're wrong.
Just seeing her standing and then like the shot of all of them like kneeling before her, and it was just like on there for too long, to the point where I was almost like, if this happened in real life and there was no background music, like it would just be so like silly and weird. But I guess it's also like a big like breakaway healing moment for her.
In The Legacy of Mandalore, Sabine returns home and tries to convince her mother and her brother to join her and the rebels in the fight against the Empire. But she will find that her family is more entrenched than they had even, feared they would be. And it's going to be an ugly process of sort of like ripping them from that. This is Legacy of Mandalore.
So, it's true then.
Mother.
Put her in a cell. She'll be held for trial.
Mother? We need to talk.
The Darksaber.
So this episode felt a lot more sort of straightforward and like a, sort of usual Rebels mission than the previous one, which was like very emotional and very stripped down and basic. This is like action heavy and politicking heavy, I guess, as well, with all all the mention of all the families and referencing to all the events that have happened in the show already.
Yeah, 'cause I usually don't find myself too interested in like the Mandalore politics and stuff, but I really love the whole butting heads between the Empire side and the purists of Mandalore, I guess you could say. I thought that the best part of the episode was the turning point where you get to see like the Mandalorians like actually draw arms to each other, where I was just like, this is really interesting, this conflict, because it's like so like we respect each other because we conflict, but now it's just like, hey, fuck you, you're conflicted.
Yeah. I guess the whole conceit of like Mandalore and the Empire is that the Mandalorians are like bound by like honor and loyalty, and the Empire's introduced and now they're at the top of the food chain. So I think that's what is interesting about it, is that like their culture is all about loyalty, but the loyalties are split between like their original identity and then what the Empire wants from them, and that the Empire technically by like Mandalorian code, they're the top dog, they're the most powerful powerful people in the galaxy. But Sabine and then her family kind of have to make the decision for themselves that the Empire fucking sucks.
Yeah, like, and the main guy, Gar Saxon, such a hypocrite, like, at the end where he's, like, betrays sexy mom and is like, oh, she's, like, a traitor. And it's like, nah, dude, you're the fucking traitor. You're the one who's, like, in line with the Empire.
And even Fenral, like, lists all 10 of his...
crimes
that he's just like, he did this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this.
But no one will care.
Yeah.
Because he's the face of the Empire on Mandalore.
The governor.
Yeah, the governor.
When the rest of Mandalore finds out about his death, there will be chaos.
Perhaps Mandalore needs chaos if it's to become strong once again, and so that we may find a leader worthy of our people.
It just always seems like, oh, they're all coming together and there's peace on Mandalore.
And then they're all falling apart.
And they're all falling apart and they're coming together, falling apart. And it's like, well, why am I supposed to care that, like, this time is going to be any different than all the other times?
That's just what I was thinking. I was kind of comparing it to what you said about Maul in Twilight of the Apprentice. Just about, like, how he's kind of like a one-trick pony. That's kind of how I feel about, like, the Mandalorian culture. It's just kind of like they're a warrior culture, and that's, like, all we really know about them or like, informed or invested with. Like, Sabine is, like, a surrogate character for Mandalorian culture, I guess, but that's, like, not even what her character is about. We don't really have a...
I feel like they tried to build it out in the Clone Wars and make add
like,
other facets of it, but now
I mean, like, a character that we
this.
can, like, attach to and, like, identify as, like, the Mandalorian conduit for a bigger story.
Yeah.
Boba.
I think that they are, like, trying to build it out, but I guess I'm kind of thinking of, like, Game of Thrones. Like, in Game of Thrones, you see, like, you never ask, like, why can't they all just get along? Like, you understand why they can't get along because you, like, are invested in the intricacies of their politics. Like, it's not that they, like, just tell you, they show you, and it's, like, actually, like, interesting instead of just like, oh, why are these houses always fighting with each other? And it just seems, like, meaningless. I think that there is a way to do it where...
I don't think they're very interested in doing... Well, I think just in general, I think Star Wars just plays more... In the prequels, they try and, like, add all these political layers where there's, like, through lines that you can track. But, like, since those did not go over well, now I feel like Rebels is trying to, like, have its cake and eat it too, where it's like, there's interesting political stuff, but let's just spend as little time on it as possible to get to where we need to go.
I mean, I don't think that you need to, like, go into the minutia of, like, the Trade Federation, blah, blah. Like, there's a way to do it. And hopefully if they have a show called The Mandalorian, like...
I thought you were going to say the Trade Federation.
The Trade Federation. A Star Wars tale.
It's just new gunray trading stocks. And, like...
That would be funny. It'd be like a West Wing style show.
That would be so
it's
cool.
All, like,
I'd be
Newt
so
Gunray walking really fast
Directed
through
by
the
Adam
halls.
McKay.
He's going to be shipped out twice as fast.
Adam McKay and Aaron Sorkin.
Yeah, that's what I'm literally going to say.
That would be
Dude, this
so
is a good idea.
Crazy dialogue that Newt Gunray just can't say. I can't say this.
I definitely liked seeing Sabine's family, and
me too.
Other than Hera, we don't really see any of the other characters' families, so it's nice to just sort of like, hey, this episode is about Sabine going home, and this is her family. Like, you get that in other shows all the time, but we haven't really gotten anything like that yet.
Yeah.
Tristan's hilarious.
Yeah, Trisket is funny as fuck. He looks like, yo, Sabine, welcome back. Like, I finished college, I was, like, in a frat, it was fucking sick. Frat boy version. Yeah, I don't know, he just seems like a meathead, honestly. Like, there's nothing really to him where he's just like, Mom asked me to, like, join the Empire to help out the family, so I guess I gotta do it. Like, and just like, Mom thinks that Darth Vader's really cool, so I think he's really cool. Like, I don't know. Trisket was not cool.
He had his moment to betray everyone, and I thought he was going to do it, which actually would have made his character interesting.
I agree. Yeah,
but he didn't do it.
I also think it was cool just to sort of show how Sabine is different from her meathead brother, at least in that sense.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that they're, like, from the same family and, like...
I didn't think he was that bad. He seemed kind of...
Dyed your hair
nice.
again.
I'm with you, Jess. I thought he just seemed like a normal, like... I don't know what I was expecting, but she went back and they were pretty normal, and he was just kind of a jock, and his mom was kind of, like, evil.
Weird.
Yeah.
The mom had, like, the Empire accent.
Yeah.
She was, like, very, like, high evil British,
Yeah.
like Dolores Umbridge,
Well,
whatever.
we get the impression in here that they're like of high society.
Coming back here has put you in danger. As much danger as holding that blade. Where did you get it?
From Maul.
You won it from him in combat?
Not exactly.
Then you have no claim to it.
Well, I'm holding it. That's a pretty good claim.
Me and my friends, like, we're just out there, like, saving people's lives every day, and you're talking about how hard it is to work for the Empire to protect your house.
How's that proof, like, not enough that she didn't, like, betray her family? Like, she's literally part of the rebellion and, like, doing all this shit against the Empire.
Yeah, that was
and
one
she,
thing.
like, believes it, too. It's not like, oh, that rebellion thing, that's a bunch of hoopla. Like, I know you're not doing that.
I think that, like, whether she's aligning with the Empire or the rebels, they don't give a shit. Like, they just cared that it hurt Mandalore.
Right.
So it's like in their mind
and
they
put
could
blame
think
on something.
Yeah, and in their mind they could think that, oh, the rebels are building all these weapons to hurt other planets, you know, like with the way propaganda works and stuff. I don't think that they're like really anti-Empire, like on an ideological level. They just like hate what the Empire is doing to them, but like are dealing with it because they don't see the other alternative.
I would say that is one thing I wish I saw more of, especially just given the high of the previous episode, was just acknowledging that her family like didn't trust her or believe her. And because for me, I felt like that was the element I liked the most about the previous episode that really hit me, and it wasn't really followed through. It was just kind of like, do you believe me? And she just says like, even if I did, it doesn't matter. And then by the end, everyone's aligned with each other.
That's why I also am like, everyone's talking all this game, how loyal they are, like how
you
loyal
threw your
are
daughter
they
to
really?
the wolves,
like,
yeah.
They just seem really loyal to like their standing in like the political games. They weren't loyal to their daughter.
Yeah.
It's kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, Sabine, like, you've proven yourself competent enough to have us love you again.
It is fucked up. I would like to see that more sort of dissected. And
I mean, yeah, Kanan even like points it out where he's like, oh, you're like morals about battle are more important than the life of your daughter.
Yeah, what if the episode ended and Sabine was like, I can't believe you guys, we don't need you, and then they just abandoned her family. Like the complete opposite of what happened.
I mean, I think I would have been fine with that. I just like Sabine, so I don't care at this point.
Yeah, I like Sabine's character a lot more. I also like how they have like a winter planet or like winter home.
Love it.
Yeah, I liked it
Dude,
too.
I love snow planets.
Yeah, it was cool.
Me too.
Just like that wide shot of the house with the frozen lake.
I like the wide shot of the house. I love the frozen lake too. I think if they could have afforded to make it, it probably would have been on the actual planet Mandalore, but instead you've got this just like badass looking like some winter home.
So down for
So is
yeah,
it like
I was
a
down for it.
subplanet? What is it?
Yeah,
it's like a moon.
What's it called? Kronos? Or
Yeah, I
something?
think so.
Chronon?
Yeah, I think Mandalore is like a whole star system, like a whole little galaxy, and
They,
like so
colonized
so
a bunch
badass.
of-
Yeah, I think that's why there are houses and clans, because each one owns a different like sub territory or something.
That's interesting.
Yeah, Boba Fett has his own
appreciate
solar system. So fucking cool.
The Boba system.
The Boba system.
She goes back. Her parents are Boba Fett and Boba Fett's lady clone.
Right.
The solar Fett.
Which Disney resort are you staying at? I'm staying at the Boba Fett planet. I'm staying at the Mandalorian resort.
Ooh, I loved, like, in the heat of battle, it's, like, super loud, and then it just, like, cuts to, like, outside the building, and then they crash through the window. I love when it just cuts to silence.
Oh, I have another Keats moment. Fenrel, let's talk about it. When he just comes in to save the day, that was just like the most satisfying thing. Him just crashing through the window to like throw them
with
their
the
lightsabers.
lightsabers.
Yeah, it was cool.
Just like, thank God.
I totally thought he was playing his own little game.
He looks suspicious at most times. Like he's just kind of like.
I love his armor. It's so cool.
Yeah, I like his armor too.
I like his character design.
Yeah, he's
with,
cool.
like all of his like weird stubble and shit.
Yeah, he's hardcore.
Yeah, I think I just like Fenrel the most because he's like the most relatable Mandalorian. He's like the one with like the least amount of loyalty because he's just like, he starts off that way and then he gradually like realizes the error of like,
I can relate to Boba Fett pretty well.
I can tell by your shirt.
You are so obsessed with Boba Fett.
Yeah, it's like, I'm wearing a Boba Fett shirt right now. It's really cool. He's like wrestling a dragon. Like shooting his gun into the air.
Obviously, as its own singular thing. It serves as its own little bottle story within Rebels that it's one of my favorites, but it's also like another mark in the journey of the show, and we'll see Sabine in a different light through the rest of the show.
It's also like high stakes in terms of like you are invested because you know that if the Mandalorians join like with the Rebels, some crazy shit's gonna go down, so like you hope it works.
From Imperial Eyes, the pressure is on Agent Kallus as Ezra comes on and says, hey, they're figuring out your identity, time to go. Meanwhile, Thrawn is not going to make things easy for them. He's also on the verge of discovering the location of the base, and everyone is looking for this Agent Fulcrum. Kallus needs to figure his shit out, and he does in this episode.
In this classic whodunit episode.
In this classic whodunit.
Our spy must be unmasked quickly, as I'm on the verge of locating the rebel base in this sector. I've narrowed it down to these worlds.
From among thousands? How?
An analysis of rebel hyperspace routes, their attacks on Imperial ships and facilities, and rather importantly, proximity to the Thal. You're dismissed.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites. Honestly, all three of these are some of my favorites.
Yeah, this is like the.
It's so good.
It was.
I remember watching it
This
as
feels
it
like-
aired, and like
Yeah, I remember just
that
being
opening
fucking
scene.
like being run over by a steamroller, just like
Yeah.
The stakes are high, and there are so many twists and turns, and it's nothing like mind-blowingly crazy. It's just real fucking good. I liked the previous episode with him in it, but I felt like this was like a huge, like the other one did the groundwork in setting everything up. You know, Thrawn knows this, Kallus knows this. Thrawn is getting closer to finding the rebel base, but this just sort of like picks everything up and just like shakes it and screams at you. I mean, I think the most interesting thing is pitting Thrawn and Kallus against each other. I mean, Ezra has his little role there, but he's mainly just to sort of help Kallus along. And the both of them are like so determined and also come from like, you know, their own little empire military philosophy. And they're both just so determined, and just pitting them against each other was really fun.
Did Thrawn have like a nemesis like Kallus prior to Rebels?
You're the one who
No.
read all the books, dude.
Yeah, his name is Luke Skywalker. They really don't like each other.
Oh, what was that reference to the princess on Alderaan?
That was an episode you fell asleep for, but he was just the Imperial guy that was there when.
I want to watch that.
That's a really Jessica episode. It's all about Imperials getting fucked over.
Sounds good.
I really liked the beginning, just like a few seconds of Kallus like off duty, because we never see that.
Oh yeah, that was cool.
I love that.
Yeah,
that was so weird, and it made me feel like so scared for him.
Mm-hmm.
That's a video game.
Yeah, it kind of did, yeah. I felt like it was kind of like a reminder of like, oh, what is he actually like behind closed doors? And what is it actually like to be this guy or to be in his head? Because what is he thinking? I mean, he looks at that mirror with regret, but what is that regret of? Like,
True.
So I definitely think that's a valid question. And like, because we don't know, we only see the Kallus that Kallus wants us to see at any given moment. When he's with the Rebels, he's very easy to empathize with. And then when he's with Imperials, you know, like Keith said, he also has his own mask for them. So who is the real Kallus?
I think he's just like sick of like the redundancy of the Empire
and how his own life like isn't valued.
Yeah.
I thought that was like the most
because he's just like
important part of that episode when he walks home. It's not just obviously everything's all gray and everything's all messed up, but like no one fucking cares he was missing. Like no one, if he died, no one would care.
I mean, he's working like a shitty job and he realizes it. Like he wakes up, he looks in the mirror and he's just like, this fucking alarm needs to stop. I want to sleep. And that's why when he gets to the bridge, he's just like, List, what's up? Are we under attack? Like I was sleeping. And then he's like, oh, stop a rebel. He's like, who cares? It's one ship.
And all of the Empire people are also like
eager
annoying and stupid.
Yeah.
And all they care about is like getting a promotion.
Yeah.
I love that moment where List like stood up in the room and he was just like, I'll give you my hardest duty I've ever given before to catch this fulcrum. Like, thank you for the enthusiasm.
Brian's just like, dude, shut up.
Just like, so, yeah, he's just like, he was,
No, but that's
he
the thing,
seemed
though.
the most Boy Scoutish of all the Imperial characters,
But
yeah.
like, that's one thing that like they do a lot in the books is just like, whenever someone like shows him enthusiasm or like care for the Empire, Thrawn like really appreciates that. That was like,
I like enthusiasm.
Yeah, it's just like, I really really like when people care about their jobs around here. So I just think that's really funny.
If only he was just good at his job.
Yeah.
Well, okay,
That's so bad for him.
Yeah, Lieutenant List, he was kind of like the butt of the jokes in the Princess Leia episode 2, where sort of like Princess Leia is just pulling a fast one on him every 5 minutes, and he just has no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
And here, the exact same thing is happening, but it's Kallus just pushing him along to the point where he's at the center of the whole conspiracy, and just like everything goes off perfectly. They even say at the end, it's just like, this is really perfectly, everything fell into place.
He's probably gonna go to like the Imperial Insane Asylum now.
Dude's probably gonna be dead.
It's probably she's the one.
Now he'll be a defector.
Yeah, Kallus is gonna go back and save him.
Oh, I hope. That'd be awesome.
Really?
I don't. No, that doesn't happen.
That happens in the 4th Thrawn book.
List certainly paid the price.
Oh.
Hopefully, it doesn't leave a harsh Kallus.
Oh, 2 for 2, baby. Ding, ding, ding.
Brother, you Lauren?
Oh, 3 for 3. Ding, 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 ding.
Okay, Brett.
It's just so Thrawn.
No, I'm gonna sit on this Thrawn chair.
Oh, 4 for 4, baby.
At Wendy's. The 4 for 4. I got it.
Thinking about it from List's point of view, like that was the most intense mission he's ever been on. He trailed Governor Price for like the whole thing.
He wasn't
just like
seen at all.
hide ducking. He wasn't seen at all. Like this was his whole life has been building up to this.
Yeah.
He pulls the gun. He like incapacitates her. He's like, I've done it. I've fucking done it. And then he gets thrown to jail.
Yeah, that's
he's
like
probably fucking dead.
That's
I mean,
like his whole life is dedicated to doing something worthwhile for the Empire, and he believes the lie that he is, and then he's just shot down immediately once he achieves that goal and is branded like mentally insane.
Thinking about it now, Thrawn was like, I'm certain one of the people in that room is the defector. So maybe he brought him into that room because he's so terrible at his job that he has to be a defector at this point. Why else would he be in that room?
I thought he brought him. Yeah, because I was wondering. I was like, why was List in that room? He definitely didn't need to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Thrawn needed List to prove that, like, to completely solidify that Kallus is.
Oh, that's a good point. Like pair Kallus up with like an easy fall guy and just see how easily everything falls together. That's a good point.
I agree.
I'm certain the spy was present at our interviews. Now to see if they take our bait and warn the rebels.
I may have something. A coded rebel message was beamed from this ship right after an off-ship prisoner was transferred to your detention block, B7.
Well then, shall we visit this mysterious prisoner?
This feels like what the Thrawn books are like. Like if this was like an adaptation of a book.
Yeah.
It just feels like Thrawn is like constantly on top of everything. He knows, he can easily predict what's going on without even being in the same room as the characters. The fact that it's like all about espionage on top of a spaceship, like all of that just like oozes the Thrawn novels.
I liked his muscles. I like they showed off Thrawn's arms.
I like yeah, I really liked how
some arm play. Would I pipe Thrawn? No.
I like how
coward.
Fuck no.
I really like how they established him as a physical threat. I liked how athletic he was.
Yeah.
I love that I feel like he really takes joy beating up those robots. Like that's his fucking favorite thing.
Yeah.
Other than solving mysteries, is beating up robots. It's just so cool.
I just like the stuff in his office also, like how he collects all these artifacts from the rebels, and it's like he lives and breathes his work.
Yeah.
Like all fucking psychopaths do. They always use this to show us how smart he is, of him explaining stuff to other Imperials, and they're all just like, what? How do you know that?
That's his whole identity.
Yeah.
Because everyone else is an idiot.
I love it.
Well, I really like the ending too, where just this sort of one thing that was left behind is like the key to doing it, and that it's all about his study of art too. Is that what enables him to be able to be like, oh, if it wasn't obvious before, proof time. I've got this helmet right here. Everything's been explained. All the loose ends have been tied up. Also, the implication being, and I think we talked about this in the previous episode, that Thrawn has known for a while probably that Kallus was the
he knew right away.
I think he did too.
I noticed it, but in the conference, I don't even think he ever looked at him. He made eye contact with every other character except.
Well, I also just felt. I mean, obviously it's not real, but if I was there, I'd be like, "Wow, Kallus's energy is really off." he just seemed very tense. And something I liked about the episode was like how expressive Kallus's eyes and face were.
Yeah.
Like whenever I looked at his face, like I was like right there with him, like and like holy fuck, like this is so anxiety producing.
It feels like he's wearing a mask whenever he's talking to Imperials because he's so non-expressive.
Yeah, okay, I kind of see what you're saying.
He's just like so deep into this lie now.
It's so deep that he decides to stay there, and he even says the line.
Why he did that?
For me, I feel like it's kind of like he's almost afraid to join the rebels. That's kind of how I feel, and that's totally me projecting. But because I don't think there's anything in stone that would lead that way. But when Ezra says like, "Hey, it's time to bust you out," like, wouldn't he be really psyched about that happening?
Yeah.
But the Empire has been like his whole life, and his reaction is like,
he wouldn't like fit in with the rebels.
Yeah, I think there's really that basic anxiety. I mean, even Ezra even says when he's busting him out, he's like, "Yeah, I don't even 100% trust you," and so
you might be playing a long game.
Yeah, Kallus is like going out of his way to help these people, but they don't even trust him. Like, and like that friction, like, just even though they're offering this way out, even though he stays, he's endangering his life by staying.
I think he's kind of like knows that it's not going to work out for him.
I'm kind of with you.
Maybe
I feel like
self-destructive, like a little bit.
I think so. That's kind of how I interpreted the ending.
He'd rather sacrifice himself at this point.
I think so too. I think so too. I think he's sort of like winding it down, ready for this powder keg to blow up.
Yeah, but now I really do want to know what happens because I want to know if he is going to end up betraying the rebels, and now that he knows which planet. Because he knows which planet he deleted.
Yep, that's true too.
So it's like they keep upping the ante, and I like that.
It's only 2 episodes next week. Droid episode and Mon Mothma, the Rebel Alliance, stuff happening. I don't know the names of the episodes, but it's fine. My name is Yates.
My name is Jordan.
My name is Jessica.
My name is Keats, and now it's time to eat.
5 for 5.